Welcome to Gold Silver Pros, where you'll learn the ins and outs of the gold and silver markets. Searching for the best precious metals deal? Our affiliates are of the utmost trust, quality, and highest customer service in the industry. Shop with our trusted partner, 𝙂𝙋𝙊𝙍. Access special deals on silver, gold, and platinum through our website or call 307-264-9441.
We're going to be getting into this video. Now, I'm just going to play about 14 minutes of this video. And the reason is because they basically tell you what is going to happen with the central bank digital currencies across the world. And they explain it so succinctly and so clearly, I'm not even going to comment very much until the very end of the video and tell you what I think about it. But again, what I have been predicting since 2018, move to cashless society, move to central bank digital currencies, the whole world central banks are basically moving to this. It's coordinated action. You're going to see in this video right off the BIS's website, this is the Bank for International Settlements, and they're talking about the BIS Innovation Hub. The BIS Innovation Hub is how they connect the dots together. Before I get into that, I'm going to hop over to the chat, see if we had additional questions. Remember, guys, that the super chats are open. So if you want to throw down a super chat, I will answer questions and read your comments. But I think we had one from William DeVelter right up front. So I'm going to answer that before I get in the presentation. William says, should we start buying precious metals backed cryptos? That's up to you. If you're talking about a Kinesis or a Load coin or one of those types of things, it's up to you. Do your own due diligence. I did a lot of due diligence on Kinesis. I personally am comfortable with them and personally have an account, and that's great. And there's an affiliation link below that if you want to sign up for Kinesis, you can click on my link, and that does help the program if you want to do that. But I think any of the precious metals backed cryptos could be good. You have to look at their audits and make sure that they have the metal. You have to look at their system and make sure that you can get into and out of it very quickly. They have a debit card, for example, where you can trade into other types of currencies. Kinesis has that. Some of the others may as well. It could be a good way to store your gold and silver and have pretty quick access to it through the financial system if you want. That's an advantage over that type of investment over just going straight storage, like just putting your gold and silver somewhere and trying to get it out later. Because if you do that, there can be high cost to getting it. It can take a long time. And we've seen that with some popular providers. All right, answered your question, William. Hopefully that helped. Remember, super chats are open. Throw a super chat down there. It's the quickest way for me to see that you have a question, especially I'm doing the present. Okay, now we're going to go to the video. Now I'm just going to let this video run for 13 to 14 minutes. It's critically imperative you listen to everything that they say, and then I'm going to narrate it. I may stop it here or there and narrate a part, but I'm going to narrate at the end. I'm going to tell you why this is so important. And I'm going to tell you why my predictions way back in 2018 have come true almost exactly as I said they would come true, just because I'm paying attention to what's going on in the world. And I read these guys' blog posts. They'll put it out in papers and blog posts before they do these videos. Well, here's a video straight from the BIS Innovation Hub, published July 21, 2021. And it was in a speech at the 91st BIS AGM. And these guys on their website, and they're talking about what the system is. Now, before I get into this, I did want to show you guys, look at all the participation. All the major financial hubs are involved here. These are the existing hub centers, the red ones. They're building new ones, and they're having strategic partnerships with other places. This is worldwide cryptocurrency, central bank digital currency system. All right, here we go. I'm going to play the video.
To say that the hub is truly becoming a global force for innovation. Let me stop here and pass to Benoît, who will guide us through the work the hub has been doing.
Thank you, Agustin, for setting the stage so nicely. The financial system relies on rails to ship money and increasingly data between locations. An open finance stack has payment rails and identity rails, just like a railway has tracks. Building tracks, digital tracks, is what we do in the Innovation Hub. And as Agustin mentioned, our tracks are the work streams that form the basis of our projects. And these are SubTech RegTech, the use of new technology for financial supervision and regulatory compliance, next generation financial market infrastructures, central bank digital currency, CBDC, open finance, cybersecurity, and green finance. In our first 3 hub centers.
All right, I actually want to go back to this previous real quick and show you what they're talking about. Check the chat here real quick, make sure everything's good. All right, everybody's hearing the video. That's good. That's what I wanted to hear. Okay, going back to this. What is this? SupTech and RegTech. This is the regulations they're going to put in the system. Next generation FMIs, again, building additional infrastructure in the system. CBDCs, which are the central bank digital currencies. Open finance, that is code for inclusivity in finance, or what it really means is the banker control of finance, in my opinion. Cybersecurity, that could be the whole cyber polygon discussion, or how to secure the world through technocracy. I believe that cybersecurity is going to be a cover word for cyber control through the new super, internet-based system. And then of course, green finance, that's to finance all of the green initiatives, which allow control and regulation of individual industries. So these are all the control mechanisms we're putting in place on one little cute chart for you. Okay, we're going to continue to play.
Open finance, cybersecurity, and green finance. In our first 3 hub centers, we already have an active project portfolio in many of these work streams. And we envisage that between our 2 new hub centers, we'll have new projects across all 6 themes. It is a global agenda that touches on all the issues of importance to central banks. Within our portfolio, half of our ongoing projects, highlighted in yellow in the slide, are CBDC related. This reflects the existing work of the first host central banks at the time of the establishment of the first centers. And it also evidences the enormous amount of attention CBDC is receiving throughout the central banking community. So let me focus now on our work on CBDC. I invite you to join me in a journey down the CBDC route. To get to our
Notice on that previous slide how he said most of the fast track programs are in CBDCs. Fast track program CBDCs. They're working overtime to get those CBDCs in place. As soon as they have them in place, there go down the fiat currencies. They're rushing them. They're rushing to get them as quickly as possible.
Our final destination, we are traveling on 3 different tracks: retail CBDC, wholesale CBDC, and for cross-border transactions, multiple CBDC. Our CBDC project portfolio has been developed under a strategy that was endorsed by the advisory committee. By design, it takes a wide-ranging approach that examines different types of CBDC and experiments with different technologies. All projects are directed towards a common objective: answering the questions that are at the top of your mind when thinking about CBDC. Our work is also closely linked with broader international initiatives. For retail CBDC, we are building projects on the menu of topics highlighted by Chapter 3 of the BIS annual economic reports from 2020 and 2021, as presented by 𝙂𝙊𝙇𝙀 earlier today. For international CBDC, we are supporting the G20 roadmap to improve cross-border payments, where we are co-leading work on building blocks 17 and 19.
Remember when I brought you a news release from the G20 talking about CBDCs? He's mentioning it here. The G20 is going to be sort of the head of the snake for getting the CBDCs across and building that digital rail system. Remember that digital rail system I talked to you about, which is how you connect all of the national CBDCs together? That's what he just mentioned.
The latter of which looks at the international dimension of CBDC. The journey has challenges and trade-offs that have to be addressed on the way. For example, questions for system design, including privacy, resilience, scalability, and interoperability in the areas of retail and wholesale CBDC. And when it comes to multiple CBDC arrangements, additional questions related to governance, integration, and cross-border interoperability. In our journey, we will need to stop and address each of them. Every stop in the form of a CBDC project will make us faster and stronger through experimentation.
So this cross-border interoperability, where the last video I talked about this, where they're building the rail system, and there were companies involved. I think it was DBS and JP Morgan, and I forgot the third company's name. They want interoperability. Something that I said back in 2018, none of the blockchain-based currencies could scale up globally. They can't handle the transaction speed. The fastest that we think we see now, maybe with Bitcoin SV, at about 50,000 transactions per second. That's not going to be enough to handle 7 billion people on the planet. Okay, so there's gonna be cross-border interoperability, meaning each nation state is going to have its own CBDC. You're going to have the retail and wholesale, so it's going to be multi-tier. Okay, and then you're going to have the interoperability. You're going to have that system built into place to connect all of these regional CBDCs together. This is exactly what I've been saying for 3 years ad nauseum, over and over, in my writings and in the videos. It's exactly what I said would happen, almost to a T.
Now bear with me and let's dive deeper into practical details. For this, we are stopping first on the retail track.
All right, so I'm going to go over the tracks here in a minute. I'm going to stop the share here just for a very quick moment because I want to see if there are any questions or comments in the chat so far. I don't see any super chats here. I do see some new people showing up. Winging it Tracy. Kristen Rowe is here. She wants me to say hello, so we'll do that during the presentation. Ty Gorton is here. Gary Granado is here. Good stuff, guys. Good to see everybody here. Remember, hit the super chats if you want a question. We're going to go right back in the presentation, and we're going to talk about the tracks. And I want you to pay attention to the tracks, because now they're telling you exactly how this system is actually going to work.
Our stop is in Hong Kong, Project 𝙂𝙊𝙊𝙇𝘍. Project 𝙂𝙊𝙊𝙊𝙍 lays out...
Okay, I'm sorry to stop, but notice how he said Hong Kong. Okay, what if we said about China? And basically Hong Kong is now going to be a part of China. China's not going to let Hong Kong go on its own. But this is the relationship to the Asian side, where we talked about how China and the Asian nations would take a bigger role in this new supranational system to control the CBDCs and also the gold market.
Architectural design for retail CBDC. It builds on the intermediated vision described in this year's Chapter 3 of the Annual Economic Report. In any CBDC design, central banks and the private sector should focus on what they do best. For this, we've joined forces with the Hong Kong Monetary Authority to explore a two-tiered distribution model for retail CBDC. The plan is to create a prototype with two separate platforms. First, an inner DLT-based platform where central banks can issue CBDC with access to banks only. And second, an outer platform with access to the general public and to banks.
Yeah, see what he said here? Some people said that the central banks and the commercial banks were arguing over control of the central bank digital currency system, but there have been innovations at both levels, and they're going to work together. Because remember, most of the general commercial banks own the central banks, at least they own the Fed. And so the commercial banks are not going away. So it's a two-tier system. There's going to be a DLT or digital ledger technology system between the central bank and the banks. And then the banks themselves are going to distribute that cash or that currency out to the people.
This two-tier architecture decouples the CBDC issuance process from retail transactions. It has the potential to improve cyber resilience and reduce the central bank's role in safeguarding user data. Let's now move down our second...
And what he's saying there is they're trying to stop from being hacked, like a lot of the exchanges in the private digital currencies, which have garbage security. They're going to build better security in the system.
Track in the CBDC space, wholesale CBDC. Here we have two stops, both in Switzerland. The first wholesale stop is Helvetia, which is the name for the national personification of Switzerland. The Helvetia project is about wholesale CBDC for settling tokenized assets. It has been done jointly with the Swiss National Bank and the financial infrastructure operator SIX. It has already resulted in two proofs of concept to settle tokenized assets in central bank money. A report on these two proofs of concept was published last December. These have shown that central banks do have options in how they can provide central bank money to DLT-based security platforms. First, using a wholesale CBDC, proof of concept 1. And second, an alternative way through linking the RTGS system, proof of concept 2. Let's look on how this actually worked.
The Swiss National Bank, the Bank for International Settlements Innovation Hub, and SIX have joined forces as part of Project Helvetia to investigate how central bank money could be integrated into a distributed ledger technology-based financial market infrastructure. The project consists of 2 proof of concepts. Both test the functional feasibility of settling tokenized assets, which are traded and settled on the SIX digital exchange in central bank money. In proof of concept number 1, the cash leg of the transaction is settled with a wholesale central bank digital currency, wholesale CBDC, issued directly onto the DLT infrastructure of SDX by the Swiss National Bank. As part of proof of concept number 1, 4 use cases were investigated: issuance or tokenization of wholesale CBDC, redemption or detokenization of wholesale CBDC, delivery versus payment settlement of tokenized assets against wholesale CBDC, and transfer of wholesale CBDC or wholesale CBDC payment. In proof of concept number 2, interoperability between the DLT infrastructure of SDX and the Swiss RTGS system SIC is established, and the cash leg of the transaction is settled in SIC balances. As part of proof of concept number 2, 1 use case was investigated: delivery versus payment settlement of tokenized assets against SIC balances.
Okay, so basically they're testing out how the system would actually work on the wholesale CBDC end of the spectrum, making sure everything's fit and finished and that system is ready to roll out, and they're getting very, very close.
The train doesn't stop here. In the phase 2 of Project Helvetia, we will continue to explore practicalities of wholesale CBDC, such as end-to-end connectivity with commercial banks and integration into central bank systems. Our second stop on the wholesale track is Project Arena. We decided to build an in-house shop for experimentation that will help our work in many different areas, including CBDC. We are creating a shared blockchain environment for all our hub centers to use in our cloud environment. To start with, we will build a core platform and modules for wholesale CBDC settlement and a liquidity saving mechanism. The liquidity saving mechanism will use data streaming technology to pool payments and machine learning to optimize settlement.
All right, key thing here, machine learning is a type of artificial intelligence. It's where the machines learn over time how to optimize their processes. So they're building AI into this system. This is where they don't need constant human intervention. They want it to run on its own, and they want the machines to eventually learn. Now, the human intervention is going to be in which they have some sort of issue that they need to solve. They need to program additional AI into the system and additional resiliency. So here comes the AI part of the new central bank digital currency system,
which takes place in the integrated blockchain CBDC platform. Moving forward in our journey, we'll now start crossing borders on our international track. For this part of the journey, we are experimenting with different users of wholesale CBDC in a cross-border context. And our work on the international track is a key priority. Our first stop is in Hong Kong, at the CBDC Bridge project. We are all aware of the pain points that exist in cross-border fund transfers, such as inefficiencies, high cost, and low transparency. This project aims to use a wholesale CBDC to tackle these problems. It builds on the previous work of Project Intanon Lion Rock, developed by the 𝙂𝙊𝙾𝙆𝙎 and the Bank of Thailand. We are currently working with the 𝙂𝙀𝘾𝙆𝙎.
So Hong Kong, Bank of Thailand, you see the Asia connection here. And I want to emphasize this is for the wholesale CBDCs. This is underneath the system. This is not the CBDCs that be used for the people and their bank accounts. This is settling between the banking system amongst themselves. Again, a two-tier system, like I've said, or a federated system, like I said, specifically would have to happen. In fact, my interview with Kurt of CoinGeek, I said it's going to have to be a federated system. There's no way one system can run it all. And I'm 100% correct here because it's exactly what they're talking about.
The Bank of Thailand, the Digital Currency Institute of the People's Bank of China, and the Central Bank of the United Arab Emirates. We are developing a production platform to support instant cross-border payments in multiple currencies among multiple jurisdictions. The working prototype will provide an operational platform and corresponding linkages using distributed ledger technology. Let's see how this will work.
The 𝙂CBDC Bridge will further explore the capabilities of distributed ledger technologies by developing a POC prototype to support real-time, cross-border, foreign exchange payment versus payment transactions in multiple jurisdictions operating 24/7. It will analyze business use cases in a cross-border context with both domestic and foreign currencies. The participating central banks will take the results of the POC work into account to evaluate the feasibility of the 𝙂CBDC Bridge project for cross-border fund transfers, international trade settlement, and capital market transactions in their own jurisdictions. The 𝙂CBDC Bridge project fosters a conducive environment for more central banks in Asia, as well as other regions, to jointly study the potential for distributed ledger technology to enhance the financial infrastructure for cross-border payments.
You notice how they're now connecting the entire world. See all these bright spots, which is where there would be a hub, and they're connecting the entire world using digital ledger technologies, but they had to build this rail system to connect them together, and that's exactly what they're talking about. And the work has started in Asia, and they're utilizing that proof of concept, or POC, that he keeps referring to in Asia, to then spread it out to the rest of the world.
𝙂CBDC Bridge is a multi-currency CBDC platform used by central and commercial banks to streamline key financial, economic, and regulatory activities. Using the platform, central banks can issue CBDCs, which commercial banks can use to perform cross-border payments and fund transfers instantly.
Our international track continues its route and stops in Singapore at Project 𝙈𝙁𝙁. If you are wondering
again, another Asian connection, this time in Singapore,
how an international settlement network could be enabled through different governance and connectivity models, you will find the answers here. The project is being implemented jointly with the Monetary Authority of Singapore, building on the work of Project 𝙂𝙂𝙁. It aims to develop working prototypes of shared settlement platforms for transactions with multiple CBDCs and connectivity mechanisms to link up multiple shared platforms.
So you see how they've got them all connected: Europe, Asia, the US. This is a joint project between all of them. They're all joining hands together to build this international framework.
The common platform creates possibilities for more efficient cross-border transactions where several central banks use the same ledger. It enables central banks to share the costs while having access to best-in-class infrastructures. It may lower barriers of entry to central banks from emerging economies and enable them to participate in a state-of-the-art international settlement network. And linking up several such platforms may significantly improve the landscape for cross-border settlements. The international railway continues on to Europe through the Swiss mountains until it reaches Jura at the French-Swiss border. Here, we are exploring the use of a wholesale CBDC for cross-border settlement, jointly with the Banque de France, the Swiss National Bank, and a private sector consortium. It involves a wholesale digital euro, a wholesale digital Swiss franc, and a tokenized financial instrument. Building on phase 1 of Project 𝙂𝙁𝙁, it was just announced a couple of weeks ago. And for now, let me stop here. Our CBDC journey is based on collaboration. It's one of several journeys that the Hub will embark on, along with trips down the other subject tracks of our work program, such as SubTech, RegTech, Open Finance, and Green Finance. We've just embarked on this journey. It's one that is designed to improve the financial system and the daily lives of people everywhere. There will be many stops along the way and obstacles to overcome. But together...
So essentially what he's mentioning here is we haven't completely figured out this system, but we're building the infrastructure for it. And then there's going to be hiccups along the way, and they'll figure those out. But it's going to be an international system designed to connect all the different jurisdictions together. Of course, if you're in the US and you get the digital dollar, what's going to happen is there's going to be that central bank digital currency wholesale level, which is traded on a different tier of the system amongst the international players. And then there's going to be the piece that you get. The piece that you get is where they're going to discount your income by negative interest rates in the banking system. So say you get a paycheck of $1,000, they turn it into 900 digital dollars, and that's what you can spend. And then those 100 digital dollars that they take is how they finance the system and also control, inflations of the currencies. Because remember, this is going to be a very fast interconnected system. So they're going to need to, at an individual sovereign level, manage their individual currencies to make sure that they're not hyperinflating or causing too much damage. Or if they just need more money to implement more systems like the green initiatives, all of those quote unquote open initiatives, socialist programs, that's what they're going to use the money for. I think we've come sort of full circle on how this system is going to work. I wanted to explain to you, again, I've been talking about all these pieces for 3 years on Gold, Silver Pros, and it's interesting to see them all kind of pop up, at the same time in this video by the BIS. Remember when I said the BIS is trying to take control of the gold market because they need gold to underlie the central bank systems, because gold is now not going to be for the people to trade or to have. The gold's going to be for the central banks to support their individual regional banking systems, but the regulation of it needs to be controlled by one supranational agency. That's the BIS. Why the BIS? Because the BIS is putting out the central bank digital currency system as proposed by the IMF, which is the research arm of this supranational system. But they need to tie it to gold. They need to tightly regulate that gold because gold's going to be so important. Thank you, Steve Ross Holmes, for the contribution. It says, since U.S. government wants to keep PM prices from rising rapidly if silver ran to new highs, what stops the government from declaring silver a strategic metal and restrict ownership? Nothing, although restricting ownership would be very difficult just because people own it in such small amounts. I could see them taxing it. I think tax is the way they're going to do it. They're going to tax silver and gold that makes it difficult for you to turn it in and sell it to a public party or to a dealer or something like that. Now, I do think that there's going to be a black market that's formed in which silver and gold become the ultimate true free money of the people. And if you have some, you can trade it, although it's going to be on the black market. It's going to be very difficult to do. It's going to be kind of like, you wanting to buy illegal drugs right now. There's going to be a network you can tap in to do that, but it's not going to be the upfront network that you see walking down the street. You see a gold store. At the gold store, you're going to pay high tax, or silver store, you're going to pay high taxes. And if you don't declare it when you go to pay, there'd probably be some penalties as well. I'm sure there's going to be IRS requirements to declare what you own. I suspect that's what's going to happen. I don't think they can blatantly outlaw it because silver is so much a part of industry. It would be too unwieldy to outlaw it in that form. If you guys want to put more questions down there in the super chat, I'd be happy to answer them for you. I do have a little bit more of the presentation to go, although I think the meat and potatoes of what we just talked about is the single most important thing that I've ever talked about on my channel, because I think it means you don't have a lot of time here. But I'm going to link this to another story that we have that I think you guys will find very interesting. We're going to move on from this presentation. Let me get rid of my meeting controls. And we're going to go to the IMF. So pay attention to this article from Reuters and what it means. IMF says Fed highly effective, must carefully communicate withdrawal plans. I think because this is coming from the IMF, I now believe that we're at the stage in which the Fed is going to begin tightening. I'm convinced now they're going to begin tightening. They're going to start withdrawing credit from the system very slowly. And I think there's a reason for that. If you look at what we had over here with the central bank digital currencies, I think they're very, very close to implementing this federated multi-tier international central bank digital currency system. Okay, as they get closer to that, they're ready to crash economy. Why? Because they need people to blame the old dollars and the old euros and that old system and say it no longer works, so that they can get people into the new system. Ab order chaos, order through chaos, or never let a good crisis go to waste. They need to create the crisis to get people in central bank digital currencies. And I think this article here is telling you they're about to create the crisis by retracting credit. So I want to read some things to you. The International Monetary Fund's Executive Board on Thursday said the U.S. Federal Reserve has been highly effective at managing the COVID-19 crisis and supporting recovery with its commitment to overshoot a 2% inflation target. And boy, have they ever overshot a 2% inflation target. So remember, keys there, they had to get to at least 2%. They overshot it on the official numbers to over 5%. We think it's more like 12 or 13. And so now that's the signal for the Fed to start doing other things, which is starting to reduce the credit in the system. They're going to blame inflation, like I said, so they can reduce credit. That's going to cause the collapse, the deflationary collapse I talked about. Then they're going to bring the helicopters and finally destroy the currency. And then the solution is the new central bank digital currencies, which you saw here in this video. That's exactly how I've said it's going to go over and over again. And you see more data here, more articles emphasizing that's exactly what they're going to do. So it says the board, releasing its full report, said the Fed must carefully communicate its thinking to ensure the eventual withdrawal of monetary accommodation and asset purchases is orderly and transparent. They're telling you they're about to do it, and I think they may be about to actually do it. The IMF has raised concerns that higher U.S. interest rates will drain capital flows from emerging markets. In other words, think about a global system. They no longer want the individual central banks to regulate their own debt and currency levels because it could cause instabilities in the system. They're going to a global system which needs to be managed. So they want the U.S. to orderly withdraw the credit from the system and not to crash the emerging market system. IMF has raised concerns that higher U.S. interest rates will drain capital flows from emerging markets. It says managing this transition from providing reassurance that monetary policy will continue to deliver powerful support of the economy to preparing for an eventual scaling back of asset purchases and a withdrawal of monetary accommodation will require deft communications under a potentially tight timeline to avoid market misunderstandings, volatility, market pricing, and unwarranted tightening of financial conditions. In other words, they don't want to do it too fast, to crash the system too fast, because they're not quite ready. So they're going to use this language about they're preparing the market. We're going to eventually, do this, but we're going to do it in order fashion. They don't want the markets to crash just yet, because they know if they come out and say, we're turning off the money spigot, down goes the stock market 20, 40, 50% right off the bat. Pressure comes on the dollar. They're starting an orderly withdrawal before they flip the switch, and cause the system to crash. The funds board also said the Biden administration proposals to invest in infrastructure, aid vulnerable households, boost labor force participation, and improve productivity were welcome, but noted that a better targeting of policies has strengthened their impact. So what they're saying is, yeah, we want you to spend money. We want socialism, MMT, but maybe you should reorganize that just a little bit. So they're trying to organize the current U.S. political regime, yes, to spend money, but to do it in a way which meets international goals. And that's a signal. The supranational agencies are telling the U.S. administration and the Fed basically what to do here. The IMF said the United States should prioritize spending towards programs that have the biggest impact on productivity, labor force participation, poverty reduction, and the transition to a low carbon economy. The green economy. The green economy is how they're going to control industry. That's what they're saying here. It said the fund also said more could be done to boost tax revenues, including phasing out tax credit. Listen to this. If you were a Democrat and you voted these assholes, these fucking assholes, into power, listen to what they're about to do. Phasing out tax credits at lower levels of income. Who's that going to hurt the most? It's going to hurt the poor. They're about to start eating their base because they don't care anymore. When you get ready to collapse the financial system, all the idiots that voted these people into power are the first to get screwed. It's happened in every communistic regime in history. I know my wife went through one of those in Cambodia. This is exactly what they do. They pull the rug out from the poor to create unrest, and then they start screwing all the people that voted them into power. That's what always happens. Increasing a payment of estate taxes and reformulating business taxes. Remember when I had the piece about Yellen calling for a 15% even tax across the world corporations? Why would they want that? Because 72% of spending, at least in the US, goes into the corporations. It's an easy way for them to control monetary cash flows. And if they can do it across the board, we move from a nationalistic system to an internationalistic system. Think about it. International system of taxes, international system of gold regulation and ownership by the BIS, international system of central bank digital currencies. We're moving into a global monetary system. It is blatantly obvious national sovereignty is going to go away. Reorienting the administration's tax and spending would likely imply a slower demand impulse, creating a bigger boost to aggregate supply, so on and so forth. So they're worried about crashing it too fast. So that's what they're saying. So essentially what they're saying in this article is we need to control the system. US Democrats, you need to kind of organize this in a better way. And the Fed, you need to start withdrawing credit slowly, but you need to let everybody know along the way so you don't crash the system. They're not ready for the big crash. Why? Because in the video I showed you, they're still building all of the infrastructure for the global central bank digital currencies. They're not there yet. So this is a slow, orderly withdrawal into the system they want. And then eventually they'll flip the switch, create the chaos, blame it on the old debt and dollar system, on the old Bretton Woods system, and they're going to bring in the new system. I've said this 100 times. I don't know how many more times that I could possibly say it, but that's exactly what they're going to do. Okay. Silver Bullion Run gave a $4.99 contribution. I'm not seeing a question there. Oh, it says, should we hold our silver and gold mining stocks? Will gold and silver go up? Thank you, Rob. So I'm bullish on the gold, silver mining stocks as the speculative part of a portfolio. I've always recommended a bucket approach. In fact, I just had this question from one of the people that work with me, Rob, how should I spend, or invest my money? And they'll ask me from time to time, I'm not your financial advisor. Do your own due diligence, do your research. But what I do is I put it into a bucket system. I have my ultra safe bucket of gold and silver and maybe some farmland. I have another bucket where I may do some speculations like stocks and things, and maybe another bucket where I do some investment into people and businesses. However you want to do it, have a bucket system. Do not risk all of your money on speculative assets. Gold and silver stocks are speculative. You can make an absolute ton of money on them. And when gold and silver start to shoot through the moon, which we think they will do here pretty soon, when the financial reset occurs, you can make a ton of money in gold and silver stocks. You can actually throw a dart at them and probably pick any one you want. But until then, it's like 90% of the time it's tough, and then 10% of the time it's great. So just be careful there and understand that dynamic. So gold and silver are going to go up when the financial reset occurs. I believe the system is going to recapitalize their banks, especially with gold. Silver is a little bit different animal because it's part of industry, so they're always going to want to price control it. But I think it's inevitable that silver shoots up as well. I even said 10 years ago, silver may eventually equal the price of gold. We'll see if that actually comes true or not, but I think it's entirely possible due to its use in industrial society and as a monetary asset. And its relative in abundance right now and easily gotten form to gold. Because remember, most of gold ever mined is still in jewelry form, coin, or bar. Most of silver is sitting in landfills somewhere or in existing products people are using in very minute amounts. So there will come a time in which silver, even though it's more abundant on the Earth's surface, is in immediately grabbable form more precious and more rare than gold. I think that's what will cause ultimately silver's price to spike. But I think we're going to have the crash first.